clinking of our forks against the ceramic plates filled the cozy kitchen as Jason and I settled into our usual rhythm of a quiet dinner. The aroma of roasted chicken wafted through the air, mingling with the soft glow of the pendant lights above us. I watched him as he expertly maneuvered the knife, slicing the tender meat, and I couldn't help but smile. Even after all these years, the sight of him in the kitchen still made my heart flutter. Another day, another dollar, huh? He joked, looking up from his plate with that charming grin that first drew me to him. Yeah, but at least we have this amazing dinner to look forward to, I replied, taking a bite and savoring the flavors. You really outdid yourself tonight. He chuckled, the sound warm and inviting. Well, I aim to please, you know that. But tell me, Emily, is there anything you've been wanting to try lately? Something we can shake up in our routine? I paused, my fork hovering above my plate. I sensed a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a hint of curiosity laced in his tone. You mean like a new recipe? I asked, teasingly. No, he said, shaking his head, his eyes glinting with mischief. I mean something more exciting. We've been in this comfortable bubble for a while now. Don't you ever feel like breaking free from it? I felt a flutter of apprehension in my stomach. What do you mean, Jason? You know I love our life together. Of course you do, he replied, leaning back in his chair, crossing his arms. But maybe we can explore some new experiences, something outside our usual date nights or weekend routines. I don't know, maybe something daring. His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I couldn't pinpoint what exactly he was hinting at, but a mixture of excitement and anxiety stirred within me. Like what? Bungee jumping? Skydiving? I attempted to lighten the mood, but I could see the seriousness in his gaze. Actually, I was thinking more along the lines of fantasies, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to say the words out loud. My heart raced. Fantasies? What do you mean? He took a deep breath, a nervous energy emanating from him. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm kind of embarrassed to bring it up, but I have this fantasy of watching you with other men. I blinked, feeling as if the ground beneath me had shifted. What? Watching me with other men? Jason, are you serious? I know it sounds crazy, he rushed to explain, his hands fidgeting on the table. But the thought of it excites me. I just want to see you in a different light, to see you embrace that part of yourself. I know it's unconventional, but I can't help how I feel. I felt a wave of disbelief crash over me, mingling with an unexpected flicker of curiosity. You really want that? Yes, he said, his eyes searching mine for understanding. I love you, Emily, and I want you to feel free to explore your desires. I just thought maybe we could try it together. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. This was not the conversation I had anticipated during our quiet dinner. But what about us? What about our marriage? It doesn't have to change anything between us, he reassured, his voice earnest. In fact, it could bring us closer. I promise I'm not trying to push you away. I just want to explore this with you. I took a deep breath, trying to wrap my head around the whirlwind of emotions. I don't know, Jason. This is all so sudden. It feels overwhelming. I get that, he said softly, his gaze never leaving mine. But I need you to know that I trust you, and I trust us. Whatever we decide, I'll support you. His words lingered in the air, a lifeline thrown into the depths of my confusion. I felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. What did it mean to explore something so raw and uncharted? My heart raced at the thought, and I found myself intrigued by the possibilities that lay before us. "Can we think about it?" I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," Jason replied, a relieved smile spreading across his face. "Take your time. I just wanted to share what's been on my mind." As we resumed our dinner, the gravity of the conversation hung between us, and I couldn't help but wonder how this moment would change everything. In that quiet kitchen, surrounded by the familiar comforts of home, I felt the stirrings of something new and uncharted. And as I looked at Jason, I realized that perhaps exploration was exactly what we needed after all. As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of my dress, I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Meeting Mark, an old friend from college, stirred something within me, a thrill that I hadn't felt in years. My heart raced as I recalled Jason's encouraging words. "Just be yourself, Em. Explore this. I want you to enjoy it." He had whispered that to me, his eyes sparkling with excitement, as if he were the one about to embark on an adventure. I walked into the small cafe where we agreed to meet, the aroma of fresh coffee enveloping me. Mark was already there, leaning back in his chair with a relaxed confidence that made me smile. He spotted me and stood up, a genuine grin spreading across his face. "Emily, you look amazing." His compliment wrapped around me like a warm embrace, instantly easing my nerves. "Thanks, Mark," I replied, feeling the blush creep onto my cheeks. "It's been a while." "It really has. Too long, actually." He gestured for me to sit, and as I settled into my chair, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, a blend of nostalgia and flirtation. We reminisced about our college days, wild parties, late-night debates, and the mischief we had caused together. With every laugh, I felt the weight of my marriage's routine slip away, if only for a moment. "Do you remember that time we got caught sneaking into the campus pool?" he asked, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Of course. We thought we were so clever, but the security caught us in the act." I laughed, the memory igniting a sense of freedom and nostalgia. Mark leaned forward, his gaze intense. "You always had that spark, Em. I've missed that about you." His words sent a shiver down my spine, awakening something deep within me. A part of me felt liberated by the compliment, while another part whispered caution. "Mark, I hesitated, grappling with my feelings. Was I really doing this? Was it fair to Jason? "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, reading my expression. "You're allowed to explore. You're allowed to feel." His words resonated with me, and as we continued to talk, I felt a current of chemistry between us, palpable and electric. The way he looked at me ignited a flame I hadn't realized was dimming. I was exhilarated, but with that exhilaration came a twinge of guilt. Later that night, as I lay in bed beside Jason, I replayed every moment of my time with Mark. I felt alive. It was intoxicating. Yet I also felt a knot in my stomach as I considered what this meant for my marriage. "Hey, how was it?" Jason asked, propping himself up on one elbow, his eyes curious yet warm. It was nice, I replied, choosing my words carefully. We talked a lot about old times. Jason's expression shifted. A flicker of disappointment crossed his face. Just talking? I took a deep breath, the weight of my feelings crashing over me. It felt good to connect with someone again. I hadn't realized how much I missed that. His brow furrowed slightly, but he nodded, encouraging me to continue. And how did you feel about him? I hesitated, unsure of how to convey the whirlwind of emotions. He's charming, Jason. It's easy to be drawn to him, but I'm here with you. You're my husband. Jason smiled softly, yet there was an edge of uncertainty in his eyes. I want you to enjoy this, Emily. Just remember where your heart lies. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt a mix of excitement and confusion. The next day, I met Mark again, and this time, the stakes felt higher. Our connection was electric, and I sensed that we were both teetering on the edge of something new and exhilarating. With every lingering glance and subtle touch, I felt myself slipping deeper into this newfound thrill. I began to embrace the thrill of seduction, feeling empowered yet conflicted about my marriage. As Mark leaned in closer, whispering sweet nothings that made my heart race, I couldn't help but wonder what this journey would mean for me and for Jason. Would we be able to navigate the complexities of this new dynamic? Or was I risking everything for a fleeting moment of passion? In that moment, I knew I was at a crossroads, uncertain of where this path would lead, yet undeniably drawn to the adventure that lay ahead. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow in our living room. Jason's eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and apprehension as we sat down on the couch, his fingers gently tapping against the fabric. I could feel my heart racing, a nervous flutter in my stomach as I prepared to share my latest experience. Emily, he began, his voice slightly trembling, I've been thinking about what you said after your time with Mark. You seemed different, happier, maybe? He leaned in, his gaze piercing through me. How did it feel to be with Sarah? I took a deep breath, the memory of my encounter with Sarah flooding my mind. She was vibrant, with a free-spirited energy that drew me in like a moth to a flame. We had met at a local art gallery, where her laughter echoed through the crowded room, instantly capturing my attention. That night, we talked for hours, sharing our dreams, fears, and an undeniable chemistry that sparked between us. It was liberating, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah. She made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I noticed Jason's brow furrow slightly, a hint of jealousy creeping into his expression. We explored each other's desires, and it was exhilarating. I felt free. Free? He echoed, the word hanging heavily in the air. Emily, I want you to be happy, but sometimes I worry that this freedom comes at a cost. I shifted in my seat, feeling the weight of his concern. I understand, Jason, but this exploration has helped me discover parts of myself I didn't even know existed. It's not about replacing you. It's about expanding who I am. I reached for his hand, intertwining our fingers. You're still my anchor, my home. He squeezed my hand, though I could sense the tension in his grip. I just don't want to lose you. I thought this would bring us closer, but sometimes I feel like I'm losing you to this new world you're stepping into. Losing me? Jason, I'm still here, I reassured him, my heart aching for the uncertainty in his voice. I'm still the same Emily you married. This is just an adventure. I guess I never imagined that adventure would involve you being with someone else, he said, his voice tinged with vulnerability. It's hard to watch you thrive in ways I can't give you, and it makes me question if I'm enough. I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. You are enough, Jason. You always have been. But this journey is about me discovering who I am outside of us. I need you to understand that. He looked away, his eyes distant. I want to be supportive. I really do. But it's difficult. I can't help but picture you with them, laughing, touching. It's just so much to process. Let me share everything with you, I suggested, my voice firm. After every encounter, I want to talk with you about it. I want you to be part of this journey, not just as a spectator, but as an active participant. Jason turned back to me, his expression softening slightly. You mean it? Absolutely, I replied, feeling a spark of hope ignite between us. We can navigate this together. We'll set boundaries, discuss feelings, and keep the lines of communication open. I want to make sure you feel included, not left behind. The corners of his mouth turned up in a tentative smile. Okay, I'd like that. I want to know what you're feeling, even if it scares me. Good, I said, feeling the tension ease between us. Then, let's embrace this together. No more hiding. As we sat there, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of commitment to our marriage. It was a delicate balance we were trying to maintain, but I believed we could do it. I would explore my desires, and Jason would be my partner in it all. Together, we would navigate this uncharted territory, even if the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The thought both excited and terrified me. But one thing was clear. We were in this together, and I wouldn't let go. As I sat on the edge of the bathtub, the warm water swirling around my feet, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest. The recent weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, thrill, and a creeping sense of doubt. I glanced at my phone, its screen illuminating the dimly lit bathroom, and felt a pang of guilt as I remembered the last message from Mark. Just the thought of him made my heart race. But alongside that thrill was a growing distance between Jason and me that I couldn't ignore. Emily, are you okay? Jason's voice called from the other side of the bathroom door, breaking me from my thoughts. Yeah, just taking a moment, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I was still trying to process everything, the freedom I had discovered, but also the confusion it brought about my feelings for both men. The truth was, as liberating as my encounters with Mark had been, they were also unsettling. I had started questioning the foundation of my marriage with Jason. We had built our lives together on love and trust. But now, I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something unknown. Why don't you join me for a hot bath? I suggested, hoping to draw him into a more intimate space, away from the weight of our current reality. Sure, I'll be right there, he said, his voice filled with a hint of relief. A few moments later, he entered the bathroom, his presence bringing a comfort that I desperately needed. As he slipped into the water beside me, I could feel the tension in his shoulders. "I've missed this," he said softly, his eyes searching mine for any sign of the connection we used to share. "I have too," I admitted, biting my lip. "But I feel different now. I'm not sure how to bridge that gap." Jason sighed, leaning back against the edge of the tub, his fingers absent-mindedly playing with the water. "I know it's been a lot, especially for you, but I want to understand. I want to know what you're feeling." I hesitated, my heart racing at the thought of revealing the depths of my confusion. "It's just, when I'm with Mark, I feel alive in a way I didn't expect. But then, when I'm with you, I feel safe. It's like I'm caught between two worlds." His expression darkened slightly, and I could see the flicker of insecurity in his eyes. "Is that a bad thing? I mean, I encouraged you to explore. I thought it would bring us closer." "I know you did," I said, reaching for his hand. "And I appreciate that. But now, I'm questioning everything. What does this mean for us? For our love?" The silence between us grew heavy, the only sound being the soft splashing of water. Jason took a deep breath, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Maybe we need to redefine what our relationship looks like. Maybe it doesn't have to be so black and white. You're not just my wife. You're also your own person with your own desires." His words resonated with me, stirring a mix of relief and fear. "But what if I explore too far and find something I like more than what we have?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jason turned to me, his gaze intense. "Then we face it together. I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want to hold you back. I just want you to be happy." In that moment, I felt a swell of love for him, but it was tangled with uncertainty. I wanted to reassure him that I loved him, that he was my home, but I couldn't help but feel the magnetic pull of my new experiences. Would I ever be able to reconcile these two parts of myself? Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter. I turned to check it, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw Mark's name flash across the screen. A message from him could shatter this fragile moment of clarity. "Who is it?" Jason asked, trying to peek past me. It's just a friend," I stammered, quickly silencing my phone. He looked at me, his brow furrowing. "Emily, you can tell me. I want us to be open about everything." "I know," I said, my voice trembling, "but I'm not ready to talk about him yet." Jason nodded, though I could see the worry etched in his features. We sat in silence, the water swirling around us, a metaphor for the storm brewing in my heart. I was at a crossroads, and as I felt the weight of the decision looming over me, I realized this was only the beginning of a journey that could change everything. As I stood in front of the mirror, the soft glow of the bathroom light reflected my nervousness. I smoothed down my dress, a deep emerald green that shimmered under the light. It was a far cry from the sweatpants and oversized sweaters I had grown accustomed to in our routine life. Tonight felt different, charged with an energy that was both thrilling and terrifying. I could hear Jason in the living room, a soft hum escaping his lips as he poured drinks for us. "Emily, are you ready?" he called out, the warmth in his voice instantly calming my nerves. "Just a second," I replied, taking a deep breath to steady myself. I glanced at my reflection one last time, a mix of excitement and apprehension swirling within me. This was a pivotal moment, not just for me, but for Jason too. I was bringing him into my world with Mark, a world that had become intoxicatingly complex. When I finally entered the living room, I found Jason leaning against the counter, a glass in hand, and a smile that lit up his face. "Wow, you look stunning," he said, his admiration genuine. "Thank you," I replied, the compliment warming me from the inside out. "Are you sure about this?" Jason nodded, his expression earnest. "I am. I want to understand what you've been experiencing. I want to be a part of it." His words reassured me, but a flicker of doubt lingered. Could this truly work? Could I balance the intimacy of our marriage with the thrill of my newfound independence? As we made our way to Mark's apartment, the tension between excitement and anxiety grew. The drive felt like an eternity, and I could sense Jason's anticipation mingling with my own. The moment we arrived, I knocked on the door, my heart racing. Mark greeted us with that familiar, easy smile, his charm palpable as he stepped aside to let us in. "You both made it. I was starting to think you'd bail," he joked, his eyes glinting mischievously. "Not a chance," I assured him, glancing at Jason, who looked slightly tense but determined. The evening began with light conversation and laughter, the three of us sharing stories and sipping on wine. I watched as Jason and Mark bonded over their shared interests, the two men finding common ground in their love for music and travel. I felt a strange sense of pride watching them connect, yet a part of me felt overshadowed by their camaraderie. As the night progressed, the atmosphere shifted. I could sense the subtle tension in the air, an unspoken competition brewing between the two men. I chided myself for feeling this way. After all, this was what I had wanted, to explore this new dynamic, to embrace the thrill of my choices. But the reality was proving more complicated than I had anticipated. "Emily, do you remember that band we used to love in college?" Mark suddenly asked, throwing me a lifeline of nostalgia. "Of course. We went to that concert together," I replied, smiling at the memory. "Yeah, and you lost your voice from singing too loud," he laughed, and I joined in, the sound of our laughter breaking the tension. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of being caught between them. I looked at Jason, who was animatedly sharing a story with Mark, and I felt a pang of guilt. Was I being fair to him? Then, as if the universe had plotted against us, Mark leaned closer to me and said, "You know, I've been thinking about you a lot lately, Emily. I can't help but feel that there's something special between us." My heart dropped. "Mark, what do you mean?" Before he could answer, Jason's voice cut through the air like a knife, sharp and filled with disbelief. "What did you just say?" I turned to see Jason's expression morph from confusion to anger. The room suddenly felt charged with emotion, the air thick with tension. "Jason, it's not what you think," I attempted to explain, but my voice trembled. "No, I want to hear it from him," Jason snapped, his gaze fixed on Mark, who now wore a look of surprise and regret. "Jason, Mark started, but Jason interrupted him. "Don't. Just don't. You think this is some kind of game?" His voice was low, almost dangerous. My heart raced, and I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I had wanted to bring them together, to merge my worlds, but now it felt as if I were watching everything unravel before my eyes. "Jason, please," I pleaded, desperate to quell the brewing storm. But Jason's eyes were filled with a mixture of hurt and anger, and I felt the weight of my choices crashing down upon me. The evening had taken a turn I never anticipated, and as the reality of our situation sank in, I realized that I had opened a door that might never close again. The air was thick with tension after the confrontation. I sat on the edge of our bed, my heart racing as I replayed the events of the evening in my mind. Jason's voice echoed in my ears, filled with anger and betrayal, while Mark's face loomed in my thoughts, a mix of vulnerability and confidence. I felt as if I were standing in a whirlwind of confusion, the storm swirling around me, pulling me in different directions. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to ease the throbbing headache that was forming. I had to make a choice, and the weight of that decision felt almost unbearable. "Emily," Jason had shouted, his eyes blazing with hurt. "How could you let this happen? You're supposed to be mine." And yet, as I looked at him, the man I had loved for years, I felt a strange disconnection. My heart ached for him, but my spirit craved something more, something I had only begun to uncover through my experiences with Mark and Sarah. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm within me. I decided I needed time to reflect, to untangle the web of emotions that had ensnared me. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Jason, who had turned away from me, his back a wall I felt I could not breach at that moment. I grabbed my jacket and headed out, the cool night air hitting my face, grounding me. I walked aimlessly, letting my feet guide me through familiar streets, my mind racing with thoughts of love and desire. As I strolled, I pulled out my phone to check for messages, my heart skipping a beat when I saw a new notification from Mark. I hesitated for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on me, but curiosity won out. I opened the message, my stomach dropping as I read his words. "Emily, I need to tell you something. Jason and I have a history that you don't know about. I never wanted to complicate things, but I think you deserve to know." My breath caught in my throat. A history? What kind of history? My heart raced as confusion morphed into a simmering anger. How could Jason keep something like this from me? Why hadn't Mark mentioned it before? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. I typed a quick response, my fingers trembling. "What do you mean? What history?" I paced back and forth, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The revelation felt like a betrayal, yet I couldn't shake the sense that there was so much more to discover. My phone buzzed again, and I quickly read Mark's reply. "Before you and Jason got together, we were close. I thought it was just a phase, but it was more than that. I didn't want to come between you two, but now I'm afraid I might have." I felt the ground shift beneath me. The very foundation of my marriage was crumbling as I processed this new information. I thought about the times Jason had said he wanted to explore our fantasies, how he had encouraged my encounters with Mark. Had he known all along? Was this his way of controlling the narrative, manipulating the situation to fulfill his own desires? I leaned against a lamppost, feeling the cold metal against my back, grounding me. My heart raced, feeling like it was in free fall. I closed my eyes, desperately trying to sift through the emotions. Love, anger, confusion, each vying for dominance. Suddenly, I felt a chill run down my spine. I was at a crossroads, and the choices before me were more complex than I had ever anticipated. I had embarked on this journey to explore my own desires, to find parts of myself I had buried under years of routine and comfort. But now, I was faced with the reality that my exploration could cost me everything I held dear. As I opened my eyes, I realized I still had no answers. The moon hung high above me, casting a silvery glow on the path ahead. I felt small and lost, caught between two worlds. What would I do next? Was my marriage worth fighting for? Or had I already crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed? Each step I took resonated with uncertainty, the weight of my choices pressing heavily on my chest. I knew I needed to confront Jason, to uncover the truth behind his silence, and ultimately, to discover what I truly wanted. But as I turned to head back home, the questions loomed larger than ever, casting shadows over my heart and mind.